Hi, everyone. Today we're going to read the story Dangerous Waters by Jacqueline Adams. Dangerous Waters. A double mystery. For biologist Moria Moe Brown, it was a bad day at the beach. She stood next to the hulking form of a dead whale that stretched the length of a school bus. Her stomach sickened, but not because of the stench from the dead body, which was making passers-by cover their noses and hurry away. The whale was a North Atlantic right whale, a species so endangered that losing just one was a big blow. Moe knew this whale. Researchers had photographed her over the years leading up to that summer of 1992, and they named her Delilah. A few days earlier, a family boating in Canada's Bay of Fundy had watched Delilah roll over in the water and die, but no one knew what had killed her. Moe had come here with a group of researchers to find out. The dead whale wasn't their only worry. Delilah had been swimming with her firstborn calf, which the researchers felt certain was too young to survive on its own. Now the calf had disappeared, so researchers formed two teams. One team climbed into a boat to search for the calf, while the team Moe was on stayed behind to solve the mystery of Delilah's death. Finding a clue. Delilah had no signs of injury on the outside. The researchers would look for clues by doing a necroscopy, an examination to find the cause of death. Using sharp knives, Moe and her coworkers made long cuts in the whale's thick blubber. Then they used a big excavator shovel to peel back the blubber in long strips. Strip after strip, the team cut and peeled the blubber like the skin of a giant banana. Oil oozed from the whale's body while Moe sweated inside the rain gear that protected her skin. The stink was suffocating, but she had the others kept on cutting, determined to find out what had happened to Delilah. Finally, the team uncovered a clue, an 18-foot section of blubber filled with blood. Only one thing could have hit the whale hard enough to create such a giant bruise, a gigantic ship. A massive threat. Moe knew that large ships sailing in and out of the Bay of Fundy passed right through an area where the right whales fed in summer and fall. These weren't just any large ships. They included some of the biggest commercial vessels in the world: cargo ships, container ships, and supertankers. Some and more are more than 1,300 feet long, nearly the length of 4 World Cup soccer fields. And if one of these ships hit a whale, the crew wouldn't even feel a bump. It's like a mosquito on a windshield, says Moe. Ship strikes are the leading cause of death among right whales. With only a few hundred North Atlantic right whales remaining, it hurts to lose even one. But the blow to the population is especially big when the victim is a female. You don't only lose the female, Moe says, you also lose all their future calves. Moe and her coworkers were finishing up the necroscopy when they got more bad news. The search team returned without spotting Delilah's calf. The researchers all assumed the calf had starved to death without its mother. As Moe watched the once graceful whale rotting in the sun, sadness weighed on her like the oppressive summer heat. She felt she had to do something to stop the ship strikes. The mystery of Delilah's death had been solved, but Moe sensed that her work was just beginning. Taking the next step. Moe and a fellow researcher went to the offices of Fundy Traffic, the government agency in Canada that oversees shipping traffic in the Bay of Fundy. They explained that the shipping lanes went through the endangered whales' feeding grounds. The officer in charge wanted to help, but he was powerless to change the shipping lanes. For safety reasons, ships aren't allowed to sail just anywhere. They have to stay in the shipping lanes, like cars on a highway. The International Maritime Organization, IMO, based in England, sets the shipping lanes to prevent collisions. Sometimes that's a real concern in the Bay of Fundy, which gets very foggy. Changing the lanes was a long, complicated process that could take years, even if Canada and the IMO agreed to do it. The whales needed help now, however, so Fundy Traffic set up an alert system to notify ships when whales were spotted in the area. No one knew if it would help. The massive ships are difficult to turn, and they need a minimum of 2 miles to come to a stop. The system went into effect anyway the following year, the same year that Mo got a big surprise. One clever whale. Mo hung up the phone in disbelief. She had just gotten some amazing news from a researcher at the aquarium where she worked. Photos of a right whale swimming in the North Atlantic had been submitted to the aquarium for identification. Biologists identified whales by their cholestecytes, thickened patches of skin that form a unique pattern on each whale's head. By comparing photos with those already in the aquarium's growing catalog, researchers could tell if a whale had been sighted before, and this one had. Its callosity pattern matched that of Delilah's missing calf. Mo's amazement gave way to a rush of joy. This little orphan calf somehow had managed to survive on its own. Mo says, she figured it must be one clever calf, so she named it Calvin after a clever character in her favorite comic strip, Calvin and Hobbes. Mo had taken a skin sample from Calvin the year before when the calf was first spotted with Delilah. Now she sent the sample off to a lab for analysis to find out whether Calvin was male or female. The DNA in the skin reveals the sex. The other way to tell the sex is to witness a whale rolling over, but whales don't roll over on command. Calvin, it turned out, was female, but the name stuck. Gathering evidence, finding allies. Cheered by the discovery that Calvin was alive, Mo and the other researchers continued to work hard collecting data about North Atlantic right whales. They recorded sightings, took photos and cataloged them, took skin samples, determined the whale sexes, and kept track of their numbers. The work was crucial. If they wanted to protect the whales, they were going to need convincing evidence that showed where the whales gathered. The whales needed all the help they could get, too, because the alert system wasn't working. By 1997, ship strikes had killed 2 more right whales in the Bay of Fundy, and the researchers weren't the only ones upset about it. A representative from a large oil company that relied on supertankers approached Mo. The company wanted to know what they could do to avoid hitting whales. They supported the idea of changing the shipping lanes. Many people and groups were coming together to help the whales, but they would need hard facts to persuade the IMO to change the shipping lanes. Mo's team gathered their whale sightings from the past few years, and a professor and his student used the data to create maps of areas with the highest concentration of whales. Fundy Traffic provided records on ship travel. Comparing the 2 sets of data showed the researchers where the ships and the whales overlapped. Then Mo worked with the Canadian government to put together a proposal to change the shipping lanes. While she was still working on the proposal, Mo learned that Calvin was in big trouble again. This time, it wasn't because of a ship strike. There's the Bay of Fundy shipping lanes, the proposed shipping lanes, and the shipping lane in 2000. Entangled and in danger. In August 2000, researchers flying over the Bay of Fundy got a nasty surprise. They spotted Calvin entangled in fishing gear, the second leading cause of death for right whales. About 200 feet of line trailed behind her. Calvin disappeared, but was spotted again a few months later in U.S. waters, still entangled. A team of trained rescuers motored their boat out to Calvin and steered close to her. Carefully, they tried to disentangle her from as the boat bounced on the waves. The rescuers cut some of the line and attached a transmitter to the rest so that they could track Calvin if she swam off. Sure enough, before they could finish, Calvin dove deep into the ocean and disappeared. Now all anyone could do was wait and hope. A month later, the transmitter stopped moving. The team found it floating, attached to what they hoped was the rest of the line. After another month passed, finally Calvin was spotted, minus the fishing gear. Once again, she had beaten the odds and survived. Safer waters at last. In 2003, after more than a decade of hard work, Mo and her allies also beat the odds. The IMO approved the proposal, and the Canadian government officially changed the shipping lanes. Since then, not a single whale has been killed by a ship strike in the shipping lanes. Experts estimate that the change had reduced the probability of a ship strike by 90%. The researchers didn't stop there. In other parts of the right whale's habitat along the coast of Canada and the United States, they've worked to get shipping lanes rerouted and speed restrictions put in place. Some of Mo's co-workers are studying ways to modify fishing gear so entanglement wouldn't be such a deadly threat. Although the fight is far from over, much has changed since that day in 1992 when Mo stood next to Delilah's dead body on the beach. Mo says Delilah started a snowstorm of events so that there is now more protection for right whales from vessel strikes than ever before. But that's not all Delilah did to help her species survive. Delilah's legacy. In 2005, Calvin returned to the Bay of Fundy, and she wasn't alone. A calf swam beside her, the way Calvin had swum beside her mother 13 years earlier. This time, the Bay of Fundy was a safer place for whales. When Delilah died, Mo had been heartbroken to lose the mother whale, her future calves, and her firstborn calf, which everybody thought had starved. But Delilah's calf proved to be more determined to survive than Mo could have imagined. Calvin survived being orphaned and being entangled, and by 2015, she had been spotted with her third calf. As Mo says, Delilah's legacy lives on. Whales on the move.